You know, every single living thing, from the tiniest bacterium to the cells in your own brain, is having a constant conversation. And today, we're going to learn their secret language.
Okay, think about this for a second. Your body has trillions of cells, right? But there isn't some central command post telling each one what to do. So, how on earth do they all work together to do everything from healing a cut to digesting your lunch? What's stopping it from being total chaos?
Well, the answer is they talk. Yup, in a secret language. They are constantly sending and receiving signals, making decisions together in a language that is literally as old as life itself.
And you know what? In the next few minutes, we're going to decode that language. We'll start with the absolute basics and then work our way up to the incredibly complex conversations happening inside you, like right now as you're listening. To really understand this language, we've got to go back to the beginning. We need to start with its very first speakers, bacteria. I mean, these guys have been having these chats for billions of years, and they've perfected an incredibly efficient system.
So bacteria use this really clever setup called a two-component system. And honestly, it's kind of like a simple switch. You've got a sensor on the outside of the cell that spots a change in the environment, and a responder on the inside that just takes action. It is a masterpiece of evolutionary efficiency, seriously.
Okay, so here's how it works. It's basically a four-step deal. First, the sensor detects something, right? Like, hey, there's no food around here. Second, it powers itself up by grabbing a phosphate molecule. You can think of that as its little energy packet. Third, it passes that energy packet, kind of like a baton in a relay race, to the responder inside. And finally, that powered-up responder goes and flips the genetic switches to deal with whatever's going on. Simple, direct, and just brilliant. But don't let that simplicity fool you. This basic grammar lets bacteria have some surprisingly complex conversations, and that leads to some amazing coordinated behaviors.
So let's take a look at a real-world example. How does a single bacterium use this system to hunt for food? This whole process is called chemotaxis, and it's basically a souped-up version of the system we just talked about.
Now, this is where it gets really cool. It's all about how a simple on-off switch creates purpose. So when there's no food around, the system is on. This makes the bacterium's tail, its flagella, spin in a way that just makes it tumble around randomly. But the second it senses food, damn, the system shuts off. This flips the tail's spin, and suddenly the bacterium is swimming in a nice, smooth, straight line, right towards its next meal. It's just a simple switch, but it creates this incredibly purposeful movement.
Okay, so we know bacteria can sense their environment, but what about each other? Can they talk to each other? Oh, absolutely, and it has a fantastic name, quorum sensing.
So picture this. You've got one single bacterium all by itself. It's releasing these tiny chemical signals. They're called autoinducers. But it's just one of them. It's like a single person whispering in a giant empty stadium. You're not going to hear it.
But what happens when that bacterium starts to multiply, and you get millions of them? Well, suddenly all those individual whispers combine. That single quiet voice becomes this massive roar, a chorus that every single bacterium can hear loud and clear. And once that signal, that roar, hits a certain level, what they call a quorum, it triggers a group response. A really stunning example of this is a bacterium called a Vibrio fischeri. When it senses that enough of its buddies are around, they all turn on a gene at the exact same time, a gene that makes them glow. The entire colony just lights up all at once, acting like a single unified organism. All right, let's scale up. Because if bacterial signaling is a simple little two-step dance, then the communication happening inside our own bodies, well, that's a full-blown orchestra.
So a huge player in our cellular orchestra is something called the G-protein coupled receptor, or GPCR for short. The best way to think about it is like a really sophisticated antenna. This thing actually weaves its way across the cell membrane 7 times. One end is sticking outside, just listening for a specific message, like a hormone, and the other end is inside, totally ready to pass that message along. So when the right message shows up, it kicks off this lightning-fast relay race. The receptor instantly changes its shape, which activates a little buddy called a G-protein. This G-protein then splits up, and its different parts literally race off to activate other players inside the cell.
But here's the thing. A single signal hitting the surface of the cell, that's like one person clapping in a giant concert hall. It's just too quiet. To have a real effect, that message needs to be amplified big time.
And that is where second messengers come in. These are basically the cell's town criers. See, the first signal activates an enzyme that just starts churning out thousands of these little messenger molecules. They flood the inside of the cell, spreading the message far and wide to all the internal machinery, and that triggers a massive coordinated response. It's a totally brilliant way to turn a quiet whisper into a deafening command.
So we've journeyed all the way from the simple on-off switch of a bacterium to the incredibly complex, beautiful orchestra of our own cells. But what's the big takeaway here? Why does this secret language matter so much?
Well, it matters because this process, it's universal. The exact same basic principles that guide a bacterium towards its next meal are also what trigger that rush of adrenaline you feel when you get startled. It's the fundamental language that drives all of life's actions, from the smallest to the biggest.
And that's really the crucial point here. This constant, incredibly complex conversation is what allows life to be more than just a random jumble of cells. It's the secret sauce that transforms trillions of individual, separate parts into a single, coordinated, functioning being. It's what makes, well, us. And that leaves us with a pretty powerful thought to chew on. You know, a lot of diseases, things like cancer, diabetes, are at their core problems of miscommunication. They're broken conversations between ourselves. So if that's true, could the future of medicine be all about becoming fluent in this secret language? Could it be about learning how to translate and maybe even rewrite it?